That would be great. So please double check that. So we are lucky enough to have the Soul Doctor again tonight, and he will be answering your questions. So also known as the famous Mark Pitstick. So thank you for showing up, Mark, and thank you all for showing up. So our mission, Helping Parents Heal, is a nonprofit organization dedicated to assisting parents whose children have passed. Through support and resources offered, we aspire to help individuals become shining light parents, meaning a shift from a state of emotional heaviness to one of hopefulness and greater peace of mind. HPH goes a step beyond other groups by allowing the open discussion of spiritual experiences and afterlife evidence in a non-dogmatic way. HPH affiliate groups welcome everyone, regardless of religious or non-religious background, and encourage open dialogue. Attendance at this meeting is voluntary. We hope that participants will learn from and share with each other. Discussions here are confidential and not designed to replace traditional therapy or spiritual counseling. Helping Parents Heal offers a wide variety of speakers, allowing parents to learn about many possible ways to heal. This includes presenters covering progressive topics such as afterlife evidence and connecting with children who have passed. The views expressed by our guest speakers may or may not reflect the opinions of Helping Parents Heal leaders and members. So we ask that you take from their presentations whatever may benefit you personally. So welcome everybody, and welcome Mark.
Thank you, Lynn. As always, what a team we are. Well, good evening, everyone, and good evening to those who will be watching this recording. So the way this Ask the Soul Doc session works is I will take about 10 minutes to remind you what you already know, you as a soul, but you, the earthling, may have forgotten the big picture of life, and that makes all the difference. So let's dive in. Albert Einstein said that most people suffer from an optical delusion. And he spoke of that we are separate from each other and that we're separate from universe, source. However, it's more than that, because most of us also suffer under the delusion that we can die. Also that we are this physical body. And it turns out we are so much more than that. So that right there, what I just said, the more you know that, the better everything gets, every part of your life, including your grieving. It doesn't take it away totally, of course. You're still gonna miss your child, miss the embrace and all that, but it lightens and abbreviates the deep grieving period and allows you to make a shift toward looking for the blessings, looking for the silver linings, improving your relationship right now. I just finished last week pretty much the final edit of this book we're creating called Shining Light Parents Speak. 125 parents, all of whom are caring listeners, affiliate leaders, and all of them went through, what you're going through. I mean, some of them 2, 3 kids who passed, but they all have found a way to create more meaning to their child's passing, make their child proud of them. One of the strongest themes was they shifted from anger and despair and all that to gratitude. They said, oh my God, we were so blessed to have this brightly shining soul in our life for even a few years. So obviously you can see the difference. Instead of saying, why did he pass at age 20? To, we are so lucky to have been with this child for 20 years. Because you understand that a lot of the kids are more evolved souls. They're often the teacher of the parents, and they may be a guide or a guide in training. They could be part angel. So when you read some of these stories, you're like, wow, these kids are so evolved, and you likely recognize that with your child. They They had a sense of urgency. They wanted to pack it all in. They had a different look in their eyes. You may have feared that they wouldn't be long for this earth because they just seemed to be too good, too wise, like an old soul. They were especially kind to others, especially children and pets. They just love life, but they weren't here for very long for a number of reasons, and those can vary. So the more that you can remember the great news, and this is discussed in article number 19, and these articles I'm referring to are on my website, soulproof.com, because there's so much to learn, and obviously I can't discuss it all in person. But if you see article number 19, you'll see a list of what we call the great news, and we, as Dr. Gary Schwartz and myself, that based on his scientific research and that of others, and based on a wealth of clinical and experiential evidence, experiential meaning based on firsthand experiences, things that we now know about how life is set up. And those include wonderful things like we're not really people. This turns out this body is much less than 1% of who and what we are. One reason people like plays and movies and good books is because they remind us that there's so much more to life than meets the eye. Here's an example. Maybe you've gone to a play, let's say Romeo and Juliet, and both of them die. And like maybe you're emotional. Oh, I can't believe they died. She was so hot. No, wait, that was me as a teenager. And so then you walk outside after the play, and the cast is waiting there to shake your hand. And there's the actor that was Romeo, and there's the actress that was Juliet. They didn't really die. They were just being actors. Well, it's very much the same way with this earthly experience. And again, the more you get that, the more you really wake up to that, the more you're free. Jesus said, "You shall know the truth, and the truth will set you free." He also said, "Seeing with eyes that really see, and hearing with ears that hear." 2,000 years ago, and even before that, perhaps 4,000 years ago, the Bhagavad Gita, the Hindu Bible, it said if the slayer thinks he can really slay someone, and if the person who is slain thinks they can really be slain, they're both wrong. And so, that's the great news. That's reality. That's really what's going on. And earthling or souls will choose to come to a place like this on earth and go through horrible challenges for the opportunity to wake up. So there's wake up to that, what we're just talking about, to become enlightened. Because if you can remember who you are and shine brightly while you're on earth, you can be a force no matter where you are, throughout the cosmos. And that's when you get more and more the mind of God. And that's when you walk more and more with Creator. So again, the truth is you are an eternal being of energy, consciousness, and so is your child. Now, I know it's so easy to get connected to the earthly form. She was only 7 or whatever. No, she wasn't. Well, her earthly form was, but her real self, over 99% of who and what she was, is energy, consciousness, spirit, life force. So that's the first thing to get. The next fear is that you may not see each other again. Oh, wrong again. We know for a fact that you do from near-death experiences. And we know that when you pass on, you'll have a reunion to see them again from the Life Between Live sessions and from mediumistic visits and so many relationships that parents have now. You can have that relationship with them now. So you don't lose them. You couldn't lose yourself or your loved ones if you tried. And the next really big illusion that trips people up is that we're separate from God. God is some big guy way up in the sky, 1 trillion miles away. And if you piss him off, you're in big trouble, and maybe he was asleep at the wheel when your child passed, and none of that is true. We're all one with the one. We're all sacredly interconnected. You and your children are integral parts of that. That's one thing that so many people have near-death experiences come back. So, they've seen the light. They clinically died, and they come back and say, oh my God, we each are one with the one and part of source energy. So again, the more you really get that, the more you can be a bright light and become joyful and peaceful like these shining light parents. So if you haven't already, please start watching those videos. They're at and maybe Lynn will share that. You go to the helpingparentsheal.org website. At the top, it says YouTube videos. And then the very first one, it says affiliate leader and caring listener interviews. And you'll see the beautiful picture of Lynn and the picture that will scare rats out of your house of me. And then just scroll down, you'll see all these interviews, and you can listen to these parents that are telling you, how did they do it? How they go from the dark night of the soul to being more joyful and peaceful and fulfilled than most people on the planet. And it's not despite having a child have passed, it's because having a child have passed. And that's a journey they take together. They're a team. So that's enough of a intro. So at this point, let's entertain questions. And if you don't want to be seen, then you can just ask your question, block your image. So like if you're asking something that's kind of embarrassing, then you can block your video image and just ask. But I much prefer hearing your voice so we can talk back and forth versus a typed in question. Meg, I see your mind working. You might as well ask it. Break the ice.
Hi, Dr. Pitstick.
Hello, call me Mark, please.
Hi, Mark. I don't know if I have a question, I guess. I feel like sometimes I get so close and I really get it. And then a couple weeks later, it seems very elusive again to try and get a connection. And I know that's common. I mean, I hear that all the time. It just sometimes feels it's almost self-defeating for me sometimes. And I guess, how can I get myself out of this loop? Is there a good practice I can do?
You bet. How long has it been?
A little over 7 months.
Oh, so that's not very long, first of all. So pat yourself on the back. I mean, when I was talking, I saw you smiling and shaking your head some. You're doing really well for 7 months. A lot of 7-month parents are just a hot mess. So no judgment.
Some days I am.
Yeah, and you're allowed to be at this point. The things I mentioned earlier, those are words, and words can fall short. It was recognized by great religions millennia ago that discussions about creator and the meaning of life and the nature of reality are ultimately ineffable, meaning whatever you say about them, they fall short because, we're like kindergartners trying to understand quantum physics. So that's why it's so important to use sessions, techniques. And if you go to the same page I just mentioned, there are 4 of my sessions free. And the one I recommend for you first, Meg, is called the Facilitated ADC Technique. I'll be leading this at the conference, but it's an actual session that I did with a HPH class so that you can I'm sorry, let me back up a notch. Before you start that one, let's do holistic breathing. And the articles at my website, soulproof.com, that discuss these, holistic breathing's number 70, because a boy or girl?
It was my son, James. Sorry,
Okay.
I've somebody out there doing the yard and the dog's barking, so I've got a
Okay.
meeting.
That's fine. And you two were really close, had a real heart. Yeah, I can feel that. So, of course you're gonna be sad. Of course you're gonna miss him. So this holistic breathing accelerates the release of grief. And so article number 70, do the holistic breathing as recommended, and you will cry your eyes out. But it's a good way to remove those blocks. It'll also help you remove like the fears that I talked about, is he okay? And what if we don't see each other again? All those needless fears, because we now have clinical and scientific evidence that shows that's not the case. It also helps you, I don't know if you're exposed to ignorant religious teachings when you're young, but it helps you release those, things about fear of hell or God could be angry at you and so on. It all just so ludicrous. And I went to theology school to address those very questions. It didn't make sense, would a God of love really act like that? So start off with the holistic breathing. Then after a month of that, then do 7 months, then do the facilitated ADC technique that I discuss in article, wait for it, 9, and that will then allow you to start visiting with James. Many parents have reported feeling their presence, hearing their voice, sometimes even feeling their touch. And so that will begin the rebuilding. And what a lot of these parents that I learned so much from in these interviews say, they said, I just look at it as my child is living on the other side of the planet, and I'm not going to see them for a while. But you know how time flies. And the next thing you know, a blink of an eye, you two will be together in a joyous reunion. And so this helps you get to that point, and then develop that whole new relationship. And the third thing I'd recommend for you, Meg, is the technique called Ask Your Soul, Angels, and God. And again, those are all there. All you have to do is copy the link and paste it into your browser, and they'll come up. And that gives you a chance then to go deeply within, quiet your brain, which thinks it knows everything, but really knows very little, and ask these questions and access wise answers from your higher self, your angels, guides, and so on. And I ask the 10 most commonly asked questions, how can I deal with my spiritual path? How can I improve my health? How can I get through this better, improve relationships? And then there are a couple at the end, a fill in the blank. And after I pose each question, I leave a couple minutes of silence where these inner answers can pop in, bubble up. So start with those as well as other recommendations. Are you that are on that same page? Do you have a caring listener? Are you talking with someone on a regular basis?
Um, no, I haven't honestly reached out to a caring listener. I have other parents in our Seattle group that I've reached out to, and they've been really helpful. And um, I've I've gone and seen a counselor, and I've done the Xiaomi Circle, which I found really helpful for me. I've done a lot of reading. I've actually been able to hear my son
Good,
sometimes.
good.
So maybe I've had some really lucky breaks really early, and I'm impatient.
Now, were you on the spiritual path at least somewhat before his passing?
I would say yes.
Yeah, I would say yes too. Just looking at you, you've got that feel. So No, it's not a lucky break. It's where you are. And see, that's one of the blessings of expanding our consciousness, because no matter what we go through, it makes everything easier. And then that, of course, is what you take with you when you pass on. It determines your quality of the afterlife. So, good, you're already hearing him. And yeah, he's right there saying, "Come on, Mom, don't you remember, we planned this, we set this up. You got to do your part now. It's okay. You got this."
I actually hear that a lot. I'm
Yeah.
not working hard enough.
Yeah,
I heard that today.
that's soulmates. Soulmates can speak openly. So do those things. But I would get a caring listener, because they're the cream of the crop. That's why we picked them. And Lynn gave the link. That's the top tab, caring listeners
Oh,
on
yeah.
helpingparentsheal.org. We have 35 of them, and you can just kind of scan their bio and see who resonates with you. But do those things, and then let me know how you're doing in 90 days. My email address is mark@soulproof.com. She'll share that. And then after using these different approaches, you can say, okay, I'm better, but I'm still having trouble with this. And then I'll say, it's kind of like the old doctors, take 2 aspirin and call me in the morning. I'll say, okay, well, now I'll do this. So you're very close. You don't realize, but you're doing really well and you're really close. So kudos.
Well, thank you. I'll just tap you on the shoulder and I'll tell you at the conference.
There you go.
How I'm doing.
And make sure you get a big hug.
Okay, I will. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, next person. You can just speak up or raise your physical or whatever that little energetic hand is. This is your big chance. This is called Ask the Soul Doc. What do you think? Is like, I'm going to talk the whole evening? I'm just going to have to start picking people. Christy, I see that you got something going on in your mind. Would you like to share?
Hi, Mark.
Hello.
I was actually in my phone trying to find some of the random questions I would write down as they come to my mind.
Yeah. Well, what's one of them?
Well, one of my things, I guess, and I don't know that we have a specific answer, but I wonder if other people feel this, I guess. I had really good dreams for about 6 months. I mean, and I would call them visits, from Maddox, my son. And then right around that 6 month mark, they just kind of stopped. I'd have little dreams, but they weren't anything like the visits I was having. I did get a visit last night from my sister who passed a year ago, which was amazing. It's the first one I've had with her. So then it made me think, okay, I don't think my connection's broke. Where's he at? I don't know. And I've heard other people say that too, where they feel like over time it kind of dwindles, or some people have said the opposite. And I don't know if there's a right answer, but
Well, here's some of the reasons why, and thanks for sharing that. Yeah, I could see you're working on something. First of all, sometimes contact is more frequent and vivid in the beginning till the child knows you're okay. In other words, you may not feel like it, but keep in mind your child has a less obstructive view of reality. So they know when, she's still having some rough times, but she's got it. She's on a good trajectory. Because you understand, Maddox, you say?
Mhm.
I mean, he's likely has a whole long list of things where he's needed and he can do. So he's like, okay, Mom's got this. Another common reason for that is that the soul involved, the parent, has a history of being a little too dependent And so the parent will actually choose, okay, give me some signs for a while to help me get through the toughest, but then back up some so that I can remember how strong I am. I can develop my inner strength and get in touch with that. So there can be good reasons for this. And then the third is that perhaps it's time then for you to do some of what I was just talking about with Meg, that facilitate ADC. In other words, okay, you're not getting as much contact. It could be because you're not receiving as well as you might, and it's time to do some of that work to facilitate it.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I wrote those down.
Okay. And yeah, and the video of this will be available so you can watch again. And did you have another question?
Not at the moment. I'll go back and check my notes though.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you.
My pleasure.
I have a question.
Yes.
Hi, Mark.
Hello. And pronounce your name for me, please, Charmaine?
Charmaine.
Charmaine. Okay.
Hmm.
Yes.
So my question is around, well, can you speak a little bit to our children hearing us? Like I tend to talk to my son a lot, whether I'm getting signs or not. And I feel like other people experience where they kind of subside. There's less really obvious signs. But I feel like I'm talking to him a lot, and I'm just curious what your thoughts are about. I know that people say, oh, they hear everything we say, but I just wanted to see if you could just speak to that a little bit as far as, day to day like communication that I'm having towards him. And I feel like often I'll get answers that pop into my head of him responding to me. And of course, my brain will go, oh, that's just me thinking I know what he would say. So I was just curious about that kind of day-to-day communication that's
Sure.
just conversations in the head.
Yeah, I know the question. That's one nice thing about being older and having done this so long. I've heard all the questions. So you two, well, first of all, when I say you two are quite likely primary soulmates, I use that in the sense of the work of Dr. Michael Newton, who wrote Journey of Souls, founder of Life Between Lives, work that gives us some of the clearest insights about realms before we come to Earth. And he says that on average, people have about 25 primary soulmates. And so quite often, almost all the time, when there's a child-parent connection, they will be primary soulmates, which means you two have been together for eons. And so, yeah, you have this eternal connection. And when you are thinking something or saying something, he's aware of it because, again, he's in that hyper-aware realm right now. The other important thing to remember about your children is that they are much more aware of their simultaneous realities. There's, again, based on Michael Newton and some other work, that the average earthling only uses about 40% of their total energy, their soul's energy, to manifest in an earthly incarnation, but we're largely unconscious of that. But people who have passed on, who have dropped this body and this limiting brain, are more aware that part of their energy is back home, part of their energy is in other time, space, slices of life, and part of it can hang out with you. So that fact addresses a common concern of parents because they're like, well, I don't want to be too needy. I don't want to deter my child's progress in other areas by being in touch with them, but they can easily do that. I'll just tell you a quick story. This is several years ago, and we were working on the Soul Phone project with Dr. Gary Schwartz and a couple of mediums, and we were in touch with some of the what we call A-team members, some of these visionaries who've been working with us for years. And I think that day we had Nikola Tesla, Albert Einstein, Thomas Edison, and others. And so I was allowed to ask some questions, and I asked, can you all multilocate? And, can you be in more than one place at the same time? And somebody chuckled, and this is reported through the mediums now, and said, more than one? Yeah, you might say that. And I said, well, what are you saying? 10? And they said, piece of cake. 25? Yeah. 50? I'm like, oh my God. And at that point, Dr. Schwartz stood up out of his chair. He was supposed to be quiet, but he couldn't stand it. He's like, wait a minute. Are you telling me you can be in 50 places at the same time, doing different things, interacting with different people? And the answer is yes. And so they started leveling out around 75 to 100. And our minds just raced with that, like, in a way, oh my, we can't, that's going to be so cool. Well, that's what your kids are doing now. So yeah, easy for him to be there with you, talk with them. You're not bothering him. We also have found, through all the research, that the afterlife realm is not so dissimilar from Earth. In other words, if your phone rings and you don't want to answer it, you don't pick it up. Well, same way with them. So yeah, you're not bothering them.
Mhm.
That help? Any
Yeah.
other aspects to that?
Thank you. Yeah, I think there's a little bit of sometimes some guilt around, wanting his attention or wanting the connection. And yeah, and it's definitely my missing him and all of that. But then I, on my spiritual sort of level, I recognize that he is probably having work to do and things going on too. So when I feel I mean I'm just needy. It's been a year and 4 months.
No,
So
you can let go of that guilt now that you understand what I just said. And by the way, for all of you, I recommend this highly. Um, there was a MD, PhD named David Hawkins who wrote a book called Power versus Force. And if you Google David Hawkins' map of consciousness, he objectified the emotions and the amount of energy behind them. So the top ones are things like enlightenment, love, peace, joy, gratitude, and at the bottom, things like guilt. And so posting that where you'll see it often will remind you that one of the keys for all of us, no matter what we're going through, is in any moment, choose the highest feeling thought. That's a quote from Esther Hicks. And so when you catch yourself feeling guilty, then some people like to put a rubber band around their wrist and snap it just to snap them out. Like, instead of guilt, choose gratitude. The difference in energy is huge.
yeah, thank you for that. What was it to Google? David Hawkins, what was it?
Map of consciousness.
Okay, thank you so much. I appreciate it.
It's an honor. And Elena, help me out on how you pronounce this.
Yeah, it looks like, how do you say your name? Elena?
Yelena?
Elena, can you unmute? Oh, there you go. Well, try again.
She's muted.
Can you
There
hear
we
me
go.
now?
Yeah.
There we go.
Sorry.
Hello.
Can you hear me now?
I can. Are you in a
Okay. Sorry. I
rainforest?
had
Are
sort
you in
of,
a rainforest?
sort of.
Okay. Looks good.
Speaking of being at the same time in so many places, I always had this question, and I'm glad you were talking about that. So, is it possible that one of the places that our soul is right now is our past life or our future life? And if so, is it possible that we're living somewhere in the in the same like other place, but at the same time with our kids?
Yeah, it's a great question. And I don't know about you, but I can't think about it for very long before my brain just goes, does not compute. But what the top people that I study, and these are like theoretical, high energy quantum physicists, mathematicians say that it's all happening right now. And those are reports that we're getting back that time is not linear. So when you talk about past lives or future lives, that's more for humans to keep things separate. But in some sense, it's all going on at the same time. And it's kind of like a, you might have heard the Akashic records. It's kind of like a big library in the sky where all the information and energy that ever existed is stored. And so we, as when we see ourselves as individuals, even though we're really one with the one, it's like checking out a book. Oh, I think I'll read this book. I'm a mom and I had a child pass and all this, when in fact that's just one little thing that's going on. I don't know if you read much about string theory, but it's like there are strings in the cosmos of energy, and if you look at a cross section of that, that's what seems to be going on, but all these other possibilities are also there as well. And I don't know if your mind's gone there yet or not, but one of the wonderful ramifications of this for parents is that it's quite likely that you and your child are together right now in another realm, just as real as this one right now. So you can take heart at that. By the way, my article where I talk about reincarnation, and really I prefer the term cyclical life experiences, is article number 34 at soulproof.com. More question about that?
Thank you. I'm really pleased with the answer. Thank you.
Well, I feel like there's more. There's something else you want to ask though, because I'm giving it to you. You're asking the question, so I'm giving it to you straight up.
And this is something I was thinking about for a long time. Do I live with him now, with my son, and what do we do? Where do we go? Who are we? Am I his mom, or I'm his dad, or I'm his sister? Or I've tried a couple of past life regressions, and I definitely was with him before. One time I was his father and he was my daughter. And the second past life regression, I was exactly the same life, but a little bit later on. So I kind of saw how this life started and then how it ended. What are your thoughts on past life regressions?
Well, I trained in 1998 for a week and was certified by Brian Weiss, who's one of the top names in past life regressions. And by the way, I have another one of these audio sessions. If you go to soulproof.com/shop, it's only $15 and it replicates what people used to pay me $250 for a 2-hour session. The introductory track and then the actual induction and regression. So you can do that in the privacy of your home for $15 and use that. So yeah, it's very powerful as long as you don't get too, and as long as you don't buy in too much that was in the past. Just remember what we said before. It's all going on right now. By the way, the way you have been thinking about this, you might appreciate a couple of thousand years ago, the Buddha said, you want to know what a human life is really most like? He said, go down to the seashore and watch waves crashing against large rocks. Each one of those drops of water is really part of the divine ocean. But in that moment, when that spray is suspended in the air, there are individual droplets. Well, that's like a human life. Say we live to 90 and we think, oh, I'm alone and I'm going to die. My loved ones have died. And why has God forsaken me? We go through all that ego stuff, brain stuff, when in fact, we're just suspended in the air for a second and then we drop down back into the ocean. So we're always one with the one. And then a very similar view from David Bohm, Bohm, who is a Princeton PhD, a colleague of Einstein's. He wrote the holotropism in the implicate order. He said that really the nature of reality is that it's an energy soup. And periodically on the surface of this energy soup, there'll be a little ripple of excitation. Well, to the human brain, perceives that as a separate experience, when really it's just a little fluctuation in the energy. And Hindus recognize that. One of my teachers, Ram Dass, wrote a book called The Only Dance There Is, which is a dance of energy. You know, it's God breathing in and out. So the more you get that, the more you're free, and you realize no matter what happens, it's all good. It's all God, truly. But again, words fall short, and that's why it's important to stretch your consciousness, go into those altered states so that you remember, oh yeah, I know this, you know, this is where you are 99% of the time.
Thank you.
My pleasure. Take care.
Thank you.
Daryl?
Hello, Mark. When you did the presentations where you were interviewing all the caring listeners and all of the people who are facilitate the groups, I thought that you did a fantastic job with that. Thank you for that so much. You
Thank
did
you.
most.
Lynn did most of the work.
Yeah, just the way you interviewed, you did great. So much appreciated. I thought that was great. Kelly and I listened to a lot of them. My question is, when do you think the soul leaves the body? Our 20-year-old daughter, she had infective endocarditis and underwent open heart surgery. And it's hard to believe it's 2 years, 9 months now coming up. And she went through open heart surgery and she didn't wake up from that surgery. And then I would say she had her surgery, and then later into the evening, she had a brain event, and her pupils were blown. And I think essentially we knew at that point the prognosis was not favorable, and there was massive brain swelling. And I would say that night, I would say that we would have felt, I certainly felt Rachel's presence when we went to be able to go try and rest after the whole day. So when do you think the soul leaves the body? She was still on life support for a couple more days after that.
Yep. Well, first of all, bravo for being here. You realize 90% of the people on these meetings and so on are moms. So good for you. Are you part of the dads group, by the way? You go into those Wednesday evening groups?
Not so much. Kelly and I do things together. Kelly's here just in the background, just taking care of some flowers. And
okay. Well, you may want to consider it. They have a wonderful group every Wednesday evening. But first of all, you said she didn't wake up from the surgery, and I kind of have to grin because oh, she woke up. She just didn't wake up on earth. You know, she woke up to the really real place. She woke up to heaven, home with a capital H. So it's important to remember that. So keep in mind that reality is that, in other words, heaven isn't some place way up in the sky, and the afterlife isn't some place, you know, with a separate zip code. It's all here right now. It's just our brains that keep us from realizing that. So when she was under anesthetic, and especially after she had her brain event, her brain wasn't controlling the show anymore. It wasn't saying, this is what's real and nothing else is real. So as souls, as eternal beings, we very quickly gravitate to our real home, what we know. And so the point is that as soon as she was under, she had one step or maybe 1 3/8 steps into the next realm, so that her soul likely wasn't tethered to her body during that process. We have good evidence that souls will know up to 6 months ahead of an event what's going to happen. So her essence knew that she wasn't going to continue living on Earth. So why hang around? Why stick? Because to a soul, this human body is pretty much like a sweater you wore when you were in 3rd grade. That's really how much significance it has. So she was probably slipping away already, seeing loved ones, seeing the light, already making her journey. And so that when her body died, her real self had already moved on. And so does that make sense to you? And what other follow-up questions you have?
No, that makes sense. It's just amazing how strong Rachel was leading up to the fact that she knew she was going to have open heart surgery, and the lack of fear she showed. I think Kelly and I were more fearful than her.
Yeah. Well, that's why I say so many of these parents said, my kid was my teacher. And it sounds like that's certainly the case with you. So I mentioned some of the signs that a child is more evolved, old soul. Do some of those resonate with you and your daughter?
They certainly do. If our family was a wheel, she was the hub. We had five children altogether. She was the second oldest. She was the hub. She was the most connected with everybody in the household. But one of the problems with losing the hub is our wheel is quite off center now.
Yeah.
And we're trying to, reestablish that. And, certainly Rachel's still part of our conversation, and what would Rachel think? But that sense of loss is still overwhelming to us.
Yep. Well, I understand it is a change. However, as you know, she would want you all to step up for you each to become your own wheels and to roll together in tandem as a family. But remember that she's really there as a hub, her love, her guidance, and can some of the kids sense her presence and input?
It's interesting. I think most of the kids at some point have had a dream with her. I think the youngest one, who would have been 11 at the time when things happened, he would have been 10, Kelly was saying. He's had some significant dreams, and it's interesting what has come across in his dreams. Hasn't had so much lately, but certainly early on, he had some profound dreams, which I think were very significant.
Yeah. What
Yeah,
some
if you said that,
families
sorry.
What some families like to do is do that facilitated ADC technique together. So you're all sitting around, you're listening to it, and then afterwards compare notes. And especially when there's, validation or more than one person's picking up the same message, it helps you realize at a higher level that, hey, this is really real. This isn't wishful thinking. So yeah, she was here just for a while. In other words, most of us need to go through the whole Earth school, um, elementary school, junior high, high school, college. She was an evolved soul, so she didn't have to do that. She chose to come down for a little while, make her impact, and I'm sure you will tell me she made a inordinately large impact for the amount of time she's on Earth. And then, she was on to the next thing. And at the same time, you all have that eternal connection.
Thank you.
My pleasure.
Christy has
Christy,
another question. Yeah.
she thought of another one.
Hey, Mark, I actually have a couple, but so to piggyback on what you just said, and I had a hard time connecting tonight, so I might have missed it, talking about the evolved soul. Um, is there anything in your research that speaks about whether or not someone transitioning by suicide, can that person still be an evolved soul?
Yeah, that's a big question and a
Mhm.
really good question. And let me mention the articles that have to do with that. Number 4, when a loved one passes by suicide, and and then also pre-birth planning, which is article number 25, where I address, because that's essentially what you're asking. Was this planned on some level? And the answer is yes. We have a number of categories where that would be chosen. For example, you understand, well, first of all, Native Americans, when they were making decisions, the elders would just say, would consider what would be the implications for 7 generations ahead. And they use that kind of thinking to decide whether to do something or not. Well, now the thinking in corporate America is largely, how much money will we make from this? Don't worry about if it kills people or hurts people or kills nature, etc. So we've pretty much, in a quick period of time since the Industrial Revolution, really hurt our food, air, water, and the brain is a very sensitive organ. Even though it only perceives about 1% of reality, it's still an amazing organ. And it's the most sensitive one that can go haywire when there are too many chemicals, too many heavy metals, not enough real nutrients, and the topsoil is depleted, etc. So I've run across numerous cases where it seemed quite clear to me that these children were evolved souls who, again, didn't have to live a long lifetime. And they set up the possibility, and it's not that they wanted to pass by suicide, because they, being evolved, they knew the horrendous pain it would cause their loved ones, but that the souls of the parents and the child agreed, okay, how many kids is it going to take? I mean, right now, suicide is the number 2 cause of death in ages 15 to 35. What's it going to take for us to wake up and say, oh my God, what are the causes of this? And we know the causes. It's just that they need addressed. And so that's one reason right there, for example. So would you like to share more and look at perhaps that was the possibility with Maddox?
Yeah, I mean, with Maddox, I actually, when I read his eulogy, which I wrote the day or two after he passed, and I woke up at 5 in the morning just with thoughts, and I just started writing them down, and that turned into his eulogy. And we've always said he was an old soul. Like, I never really knew what that term meant till now, but we always referred to him as that. He passed when he was just shy of 15. That there was no drugs or alcohol. It was just one random day, completely out of nowhere. But I think he struggled with the world, and he actually, on his phone, the only thing we found on his phone when we had it checked was the little box where you organize apps on the front page of your phone. He labeled it mental illness, and he put a few of the social media apps that he kind of would randomly go into here and there. But he didn't have a tolerance for just a lot of what this world presents us with on a daily basis. Yeah, so in that way, he's taught me a lot in his passing, just about recognizing the world and just being more authentic and not getting caught up in the things that he felt like were not important in his life here. And I was raised a certain way, right, to think a certain way, and now I'm rethinking my thought patterns and how I look at things. But yeah, so it's just always going to be a question I have, if
Yeah. Again, it helps if we remember it's all about energy. It's a dance of energy. We're beings of energy. So it sounds like he had a very high energy personally. Well, that means that, and this is true for all of us, that it's important to have high energy choices, pure water, very few drugs, prescription drugs I'm talking about, healthy diet, and so on. And if they don't have that, then there's a mismatch between their energy and their physical body, their brain function. One of the common denominators in suicide notes is they said, I just couldn't stay here any longer. And when you said he struggled with the world, yeah. And gosh, who wouldn't struggle? I mean, if you can look at the news and say, well, we're all doing good here, something's not right. So there are lots of kids like that. And my hope is that eventually humanity will wake up enough. You see, because my goal is really to change the world, to make the world a better place, like the Michael Jackson song. And in the past, we had what I call 15 percenters, which are the more intermediate and advanced souls. We have people who had near-death experiences who saw the light. We have people who had other spiritually transformative experiences. But now I am aware of, and that's one reason I work with HPH so much, this army of enlightened parents, shining light parents. And you want to talk about a force. Look how many there are around the world. And one by one, as they shift from deep grief and suffering and anger and all that to joy and finding the silver lines and sharing them, that is the kind of thing that can create a tipping point and literally turn our world around. So from a cosmic view, would that be worth your child and others, suffering some and passing by suicide? Definitely, because our time on earth is a blink of an eye, a span of eternity.
Yeah, I like to think of it as this, I don't want to call it a wake up call. I just want to internalize it and just be better and learn from it and think that it was a teaching lesson that he's given me because he already knew it. I like to say that in my mind. And then I'm just now waking up, but yeah, I'm thankful for that piece of it anyway.
Well, you're doing it. I can tell by your questions over the different sessions. Keep up the
Thank
great
you.
work.
Thank you.
And to you and to all parents, I offer, as long as my schedule allows, this summer, the Soul Phone Project's really going to take off. And I don't know if I'll be able to keep doing it, but as long as I can, I'm willing to have you email me with specific questions like, here's what's going on, here's my challenges, and I will create a personalized program for you. It only takes me about 10 minutes because I have all these templates and resources at hand, but I will come up with a personalized program for you. Do this, this, and this. And so take advantage of it while it's available. By the way, I am glad to stay on longer than an hour. And so if other people have questions, we don't have to stop at the hour. Interesting, by the way, the Christy, the painting behind us is talking about the Buddha and waves crashing on rocks.
Well, it's funny because I'm actually at we have a hospital downtown Indianapolis. It's Riley, and I'm at grief therapy for my daughter. She's doing a music therapy, and I'm in their waiting room. Yeah.
Perfect. Perfect.
I actually have some, if no one else has anything, I don't want to dominate. I have some other random questions. But
What do you think, Lynn? Should we allow her to have one more?
Yeah, I think she's doing pretty good here. Go ahead, Chris.
thank you. Thank you. So this sort of piggybacks off, and I'm sorry, I don't know what I can't remember the woman's name that was speaking earlier about past life regression. So my husband and I each have appointments with Linda Bachman in March of next year. And I've never had one before. So one of my questions is around the fact that it'll be remote. So I guess I'm a little bit, I don't want to say apprehensive, but just the fact that I really get to that state where I'm going to be able to remember, go back and be able to talk about a past life, because it just seems so crazy to think that your mind can get you there. So I'm thinking like, am I even going to be able to, am I going to be the 1% that can't? And then the next question is it better to be in person? Just to know what your thoughts are on that.
Yeah, first of all, most therapists now are doing these sessions remotely. But you don't have to wait till then. As I mentioned, article number 102 at soulproof.com discusses past life regressions, and then there's a $15 audio where you can do it yourself, because some people have trouble deeply relaxing, turning off their brains. So wouldn't that be a shame to wait all that time and pay all that money, and then you kind of drew a blank? So that's the beauty of kind of not being in a pressure situation. You can use it repeatedly in the comfort of your home and get used to that point where you quiet the brain and then are aware of other things that can seem like they were in the past.
Yep, that's helpful. I'm gonna try that for sure, especially for my husband. I meditate, so I feel more confident than he does at this point with that. One kind of tying question to that too is, I know Linda talks about the different soul types, and I wonder, you know, having the regressions, is that something that you're aware of if people are able to tell what like a past loved ones, or is it strictly going to be about me? Or, you know, would I be able to kind of get some insight about him as well?
Well, it's hard to say.
Maybe
It's really hard to say. Maybe you want to email me about that.
Okay.
Linda's very good, by the way. I know her. We've been at different conferences together and so on.
Okay.
Yeah, let's go with that.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah, Elena, did we see your hand up again?
Yes, I was just gonna say something to Christy. I had exactly same concerns when I had it, and both times it was on Zoom. And I just want to give you a tip. It's very important to be by yourself in a quiet room, no interruption, no TV, no other people, and you'll just do fine.
Okay,
You'll be
thank
fine.
you.
You're
Thank you,
welcome.
appreciate that.
Okay, any other questions this evening? Don't make me start calling on people again. Cheryl, you're our #1 fan. You're always on here first. You're muted.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. I haven't talked tonight because I have the flu, but I couldn't miss this, so I'm here. That's why I disappeared for a while. I have a stomach flu, but questions. I'm a mess right now, kind of confused. My son passed 2.5 years ago at 36, and my daughter passed 18 years before that at 18. So they were 15 months apart. So I've been, for the last couple years, really focusing like my mind constantly on my son, and looking for signs, and he sent me signs and everything like that. He sent me some good signs, and I feel him and everything. Well, then in January, my younger brother, who was my only sibling, ended his life by suicide the end of January of this year. So it was a couple months ago. So now my head is going in every direction. I'm like, I did have a reading, but mostly my brother came through, not my son. And she talked mostly about my brother, and not that I wasn't happy about that, but I just, I want to say something positive, but right now I just don't feel that positive. I have so much.
Yeah. And that's okay. Right where you are is just fine. And that's a lot. 2 kids and then your younger brother, your baby brother. By the way, I encourage upgrading your language. He didn't end his life. He ended this earthly experience, but you can't end your life. Life is forever. So just that one little distinction. But I would say with those multiple changes, challenges, be gentle with yourself, be good with yourself. It's normal to feel like you're a mess right now. It's okay. And then you stay being a mess, but reach out, caring listener, and watch the videos and the different things. but at some point you're going to notice that you're feeling better and you're having a little more joy. But sometimes you just got to get through that. Lynn,
Yeah.
would you like to share some words of wisdom on that one, please? I know I'm in trouble for putting you on the spot, but I just
You
feel
know, I hate this. Well, I do know Cheryl. She's awesome, and we appreciate everything you do to support Mark, Cheryl. So we love you, and I know it's been really rough and that your brother kind of spiralized you down a little bit, but we're all here for you and we love you. And it does get better. Hang in there.
We
Yeah.
appreciate you saying that. Thank you, Lynn.
Yeah, you're not alone on this journey. That's a big
No,
one.
you have lots of people that love you.
I sometimes wonder because I have such a small family now. I used to have a big family, and now it's dwindled down to so small now. And I don't have my husband, my ex-husband's side. They don't talk to me. I've lost a lot of people. And as you get older, that's normal. I know that's normal, but I feel like I'm bombarded with loss of family. And I think, well, family, I know they say you can have family that's not blood. Family, and you can have family that isn't family, that's blood. So that's what I'm trying to work on.
Good.
Finding family.
You have your HPH family here.
Yeah, I do. I know that. Yes.
Yeah,
Thank you. I'm thankful for that. I don't know what I'd do without you
that was
guys.
another
Really.
common denominator among these shining light parents, that so many of them, and am I muted? No, that so many of them, their closest friends were not family, because oftentimes their family didn't understand, or maybe like you, they
Yeah.
didn't have that much. So they found people in their tribe, they expanded their circle, many of whom are parents with kids who passed. And by the way, I wrote article number 66, which is called Relationships for More Evolved People. And so it has in there what I've learned over the years, where more evolved people tend to hang out. And so you can, well, like unity churches, for example, meditation groups, yoga groups, and there's a whole list. So you can find other people to as kindred spirits.
Yeah, I do go to most everything. I live in Phoenix, so it's right up, not too far from me. I'm lucky in that sense.
Yeah, well, it's just a matter of time then, dear. You're doing it.
I know.
This is what it feels like. You're in the process of it.
Yeah, some days I'm doing okay, so I know that I'm not completely hopeless. Some days I feel, oh, I'm doing pretty good today, and then, but
Cheryl, I've seen a lot of growth in you. I mean, in the beginning, you were just so sad and couldn't hardly live. And look at you now, you got a smile on your face. So we got you.
yeah, people say that all the time. And I don't really, I wonder, really, what did I look like before? I don't remember feeling, I know the first year I didn't drive. I wouldn't drive a car. So, and I haven't worked in 3 years. I haven't gone back to work, but I was, the first year, I think I was in a fog. First year and a half, maybe 2, and I was really in a fog. But I'm starting to, I drive now.
And by the way, Cheryl, thank you for drawing Lynn out. In the past, I've tried to get her to share some of her many words of wisdom. So I think we got Ask the Soul Doc, and now we got Ask the Soul Therapist, or whatever you want to be called, Lynn.
The Pixie Fairy.
Ask the Pixie Fairy.
Pixie Fairy.
Oh, boy.
Okay. Okay.
That's a good
All
one.
right. I appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Keeping
for
your
all you
thoughts and
do.
prayers. You got this.
I hope. Yeah, I know. Your mind, it's just things some days, but uh yeah, I am trying. I'm trying.
And someday you'll look back on this, whether you're on Earth or elsewhere, and you understand more why you had to go through this. You know, because we can't see the big picture now. In other words, your struggles might be blessing other people in this call in ways you don't understand. So, yeah, just take it one day at a time.
Yeah.
Well, any other?
I know they have Monday nights. They have soul planning with who's that has soul planning? Um,
Sarah,
Sarah?
is that Sarah Rubel?
Sarah Rubble, yeah.
Mhm.
And I went on that a couple times, and I can't seem to buy into that because I don't feel like I planned this journey with my kids. I just can't.
Yeah. Well, you don't have to buy into it if it doesn't make sense to you now, but you might learn more by reading my article number 25 about pre-birth planning and understand more about it. And then you can use that audio again, $15. Oh, and by the way, anyone who can't afford any of the books or sessions I recommend, let me know and we'll send you a free copy, digital copy. So yeah, you can use it in the privacy of your home, but Sarah is excellent, and you can watch those videos, so you can use it over and over. But there's some good clinical evidence that happens at least some of the time. All right, let's allow for one more person if you want, or maybe wrap
Okay.
it. You're welcome.
Okay.
All
Well,
right.
thank you, Dr. Soul Doctor. We appreciate all your wisdom and
You're welcome.
another
So,
great
Pixie
night.
Fairy.
Thank you all for coming. Hang in there.
Thank you.
We love you
Yeah,
guys.
and we do this the third Monday of each month, except for during conference. That's conference week, and I'll be doing this at the conference. So yeah, remember to get hold of me if you have questions, need some extra personalized information. Glad to do it. Take care, shine brightly.
Bye,
Thank
everybody.
you.
Bye.
Good night.
Bye.
Thank
Thank-
you.
Good night. Thank you.
My pleasure.